I Love CVille Show. It's great to connect with you guys through the I Love CVille Network in our studio in downtown Charlottesville. It's not just home to the I Love CVille Network. It's home to the Miller organization and a good chunk of our real estate holdings where we rent commercial office space, executive office space, and commercial office space. And it's through this professional pursuit that we get to know a lot of small business owners and a lot of entrepreneurs, attorneys, and dentists, and financial advisors, and therapists, and deal makers currently renting from us, film producers, corporate video makers currently renting from us, and we enjoy it. I enjoy speaking to folks of all walks of professional life. And as I was making my rounds, as I try to do in the Macklin Building and around the downtown mall, the conversation that was the talk of town in downtown Charlottesville was the murder and mayhem that took place in Crozet yesterday outside a Harris Teeter grocery store. Never in my wildest imagination, maybe my wildest nightmares is a better description, did I think that murder and mayhem would take place, ladies and gentlemen, outside of a Harris Teeter in Crozet, Virginia. We're going to unpack this story. We're going to talk about it from the police response. We'll talk about it from the community response. I think we have to talk about it from a concealed carry permit response. A good Samaritan prevented even more bloodshed. And I would expect that we will hear from the fine folks of the Albemarle County Police Department as we, the community, have questions like motive. Was this a random attack of violence? Or was this violence based on vendetta and previous interaction? I want to talk about that on today's show. I want to talk Jack Jouett District in Albemarle County. Thank God we have a contested election. Interestingly, this is the district that I live in. Albemarle County's Jack Jouett District covers just about all of Ivy, Virginia. And we have two candidates that are running, including one candidate that is the poster child of livable Charlottesville, and another candidate that has somewhat of a known commodity in the small political circles that insiders run within and around. So I want to introduce you to the candidates. I thought Sean Tubbs did excellent work covering these two individuals who have put their hat in the ring in what is the first contested election in Central Virginia. And here it is, February, and a good chunk of the seats across many jurisdictions are currently up for grabs. We'll talk on today's show the University of Virginia. They have offered admissions to 6,746 early action applicants. That is a 3.5% increase in early admissions offers versus 2024. The University of Virginia is a coveted place to attend, and the applications and the interests speak to that statement. Never in the history of the University of Virginia has there been more interest to attend Thomas Jefferson's University. And the university is a business. They are capitalizing on that demand by admitting or offering admissions to more people than they did last year. A 3.5% increase may not seem like a lot, but when you increase the admissions pool by 3.5% every year, you see how this compound effect can dramatically shape or gentrify this community. Many of those early action admissions being sent to out-of-state students and their families. So we'll unpack that on today's program. We'll talk Virginia basketball. The game did not go according to plan. Maybe it did go according to plan. The Blue Devils a 14.5-point favorite, depending on where you shop. It was never a matchup. Still, I salute Ron Sanchez and the program for fighting from start to finish. You didn't see any give up here from these boys. And I'll tell you, Anthony Robinson, the big man inside, is looking like a star in the making. I mean, Sanchez has got a core group of players that he can build around with five ACC regular season games left. A lot I want to cover in the program. I want to give some props to Judah Wickower before I highlight some of the equipment that was sold at yesterday's Champion Brewing and Reason Brewing auction. $1.6 million in valued equipment, selling for less than $100,000 at a public auction yesterday. I'll show you some of those pictures. And then I want to offer a take on what's maybe happening in the beer world, ladies and gentlemen, before I talk murder and mayhem outside of Harris Teeter and Crozet. We'll talk Charlottesville Sanitary Supply, John Vermillion and Andrew Vermillion. If we can give them some love, 60 consecutive years, 60 plus years, in fact, of business. We had a great conversation with the Vermillion men yesterday on their East High Street location. CharlottesvilleSanitarySupply.com, CharlottesvilleSanitarySupply.com, located on East High Street in the city of Charlottesville. Support the businesses that you want to see live and last another 60 years, ladies and gentlemen. I was having a conversation via direct message with a friend that I've known since I was a student at the University of Virginia, and he was a barkeep on the UVA corner. And we both waxed nostalgic of the Charlottesville of yesteryear, where the locally owned business had significantly more market share and significantly more chance at success. Post-COVID, the big box brand and the advantages of being a publicly traded company or a big box brand have unfortunately, it's reared its ugly head, and it's helped these brands capture even more market share as the community is gentrifying rapidly, and the commitment to shopping and keeping things local is unfortunately evaporating. Part of the story part of that comment is this story. Part of the story I'm going to cover first is also financial malpractice. By now, you know the collapse of the Champion beer brand, and yesterday an auction took place, and the proverbial vultures with the dead carcass on the side of the road picking at the carcass. Let's show, if we could, a slideshow of some of the equipment that was purchased yesterday. You're looking at $1.6 million of equipment that traded for less than $100,000 at a public auction, ladies and gentlemen. Judah's rotating that slideshow now. We're talking tanks. We're talking can carrier applicators. We're talking brew house system builds, fermentation tanks, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking some of the sexiest of equipment possible, purchased at top dollar when this beer business was in operation, now trading for absolute pennies on the dollar. And if you'd like to see what some of this equipment traded for, I will share this link in the comments section of my Facebook page. I'm posting it now. It'll show you the price point of some of these individual units and what they traded for. I will share it in the comment section, ladies and gentlemen, of my LinkedIn, where this show is airing right now. Are we back on a 1, J-Dubs?
Yep.
I'll share the auction equipment in my LinkedIn comment section. I'm doing it right now. It's there. I will share it here on YouTube, where this show is airing upon, for you to get an idea, because it's a springboard into a topic we need to talk about here. So it's in the comment section, the chat of YouTube. I'll put it in the Twitter thread where this show is airing upon, where you guys can get a feel for the equipment and how it is traded for pennies, absolute pennies, ladies and gentlemen, on the dollar. And then I'm going to utilize this as an opportunity, FYI. I'm sharing it on Twitter. There you go, for those watching on Twitter. I just sent it. And then I'll post it on the I Love CVille Facebook page. So you can find this auction on my personal Facebook, the I Love CVille Facebook, my personal Twitter, my personal LinkedIn, and in the comments of the chat box where this show is airing upon on YouTube. Viewers and listeners, look at the equipment. I mean, just top-notch equipment. And it is a segue of multiple points of conversation. The first point of conversation, Charlottesville Business Brokers, one of our companies, we help people buy and sell businesses. And on yesterday's show, I offered a word of caution to the owners that are thinking about selling. You sell your business not when your business is in trouble. You sell your business when you have that first inclination of selling, when your top line number and your cash flow are outperforming the previous 2 years, and when your assets, your equipment are in good shape, and when your lease has runway and it has years of life. You do not sell your business when your top line number or your cash flow are deteriorating versus the previous year, when your assets are suffering in quality. They could be antiquated, they may not be inspected or kept up with inspection, and you do not sell your business when your lease has little runway on it. Words of caution for the business owners that watch this program through someone who is at the deal table doing these closings with Charlottesville Business Brokers. Now, let's segue this as it applies to the beer business. Whether you guys want to admit this or not in the beer game, whether you guys want to admit this or not in the wine game, the cider game, the booze game, here is the reality. The young millennial, do you have the generational chart that you can put on screen? Please put it on screen if you can. The young millennial, the Gen Zer, is just not drinking. Give us a thumbs up when that's on screen. It's on screen. Look at the screen. The young millennial and the Gen Zer just is not drinking at the same clip alcohol that the older millennial. What are you, a Gen Xer?
I am,
You're a Gen Xer.
Xer, yeah.
That baby boomers, Gen Xers, and older millennials were drinking. And that's a fact, folks. And I'm not going to speak in this situation by naming brands specifically. But ladies and gentlemen, there are a couple very well-known breweries in the Charlottesville area, very well-known, that are in some serious financial issues. And the breweries that are able to make it through the fall and collapse of some of their competitors are in a position to gain some market share. But some very well-known breweries that you patronize, that I patronize, are on the cusp of collapse as we speak. And that's an effing fact. And some people may not like to hear it, but that's a fact. Human behavior has changed. It has changed. And maybe this is part of the collateral damage of COVID, maybe this is not. But some people got some of the best equipment humanly possible in yesterday's auction for, 9 cents on the dollar? 8 cents on the dollar? 7.5 cents on the dollar? I want you to think about that. 7.5 cents on the dollar. We'll go 1/6 times 0.075. We're talking 7 cents on the dollar, 6.5 cents on the dollar right there, people. So it's a metaphor for life. The people who anticipate the worst case scenario and are prepared for the worst case scenario are the ones that can capitalize when the worst case scenario presents itself. And that's going to be a natural segue to the concealed weapons permit, the concealed carry permit, and murder and mayhem at the Harris Teeter and Crozet. But there were people in the beer business locally that were well capitalized to jump on this opportunity, and they got fantastic equipment for 6.5 cents on the dollar. Think about that. And another trend that's happening, and this is a scary effing trend, viewers and listeners. At that auction yesterday, you had actual suppliers, manufacturers of beer equipment buying the equipment just to scrap metal the equipment. I'm going to say that again so you understand what's happening. There was an auction yesterday with $1.6 million in Champion and Reason equipment that was on the auction block. And at the auction yesterday, you had manufacturers of beer and booze equipment buying the equipment to scrap the equipment so the market would not be flooded with beer and booze making equipment. When manufacturers are buying the equipment of failed businesses, that is a significant red flag of what's happening in the industry. And that's what we saw yesterday. And that's the type of content that you get on the I Love CVille show, which you're not going to find anywhere else. And you could find the link to the equipment by looking in the comment section of my personal Facebook page, the I Love CVille Facebook page, the comment section of our LinkedIn, my personal Twitter, or on YouTube. And it's a segue to Murder and Mayhem at the Harris Teeter. I just offered Judah, as we weave you in on a two-shot, the upside of being prepared for the worst-case scenario. And yesterday we had a nightmare take place outside a grocery store in a sleepy and safe community. And we had a good Samaritan, as the Albemarle County Police Department has monikered him, see the nightmare take place in real time and utilize his personal weapon, his personal gun, to shoot and kill the ringleader of murder and mayhem in the parking lot. A lot I want to unpack on this story. First is thoughts and prayers to everyone involved. Thoughts and prayers to everyone involved. The news moments before this show goes on air confirms that the second victim has now died in connection with the Monday afternoon shooting in Crozet. The Albemarle County Police Department confirms a woman who was injured in the incident died overnight at UVA Medical Center. The incident yesterday at 1:30 p.m., just as this show was ending, in the parking lot of Harris Teeter and Crozet. A preliminary investigation, according to the Albemarle County Police Department release, now has identified the shooter as a 28-year-old named Justin M. Barber of Crozet. He entered the parking lot and started firing a rifle at the first victim. The first victim was a 43-year-old male named Peter L. Martin of Crozet. As he was leaving Harris Teeter, he was shot by Justin Barber and died at the scene. The police then said that Barber went to the second person in her vehicle, and shot her, where she later died at the hospital at UVA. That victim, a 68-year-old woman, Diane Spangler of Afton. An off-duty federal law enforcement officer heard the gunfire while leaving Harris Teeter and engaged with Barber, utilizing his personal weapon. Barber then killed at the scene. The off-duty officer was not hurt. Look, Good Samaritan is one way of describing it. You know how I describe it? A hero. The off-duty officer utilizing their personal weapon to shoot and kill someone who is shooting and looking to kill others is more than a good Samaritan. They are an effing hero. They should be celebrated and championed for courage, for quick thinking, clear-headedness, the willingness to pull a personal weapon and to shoot to kill someone who is looking to take the lives of others. That is heroic. And this was done in a way where pro-gun folks are celebrating concealed weapon permits, the right to carry arms. And this is going to bristle and ruffle some feathers locally. But the right to carry arms, a concealed weapons permit, when in the right hands, when in the hands of the right people with the right training, here it proved to be a measure of heroism. Judah Wickhauer, before we open it up for viewers and listeners' thoughts and perspectives, put your questions, put your comments, put your ideas on the feed. Wickhauer, the show is yours.
You're right. The fact that there was someone there who could take action, as we all know, you and I both support the police, but they can't be where things are happening without getting a phone call. They can't be everywhere that something something bad happens. And so the fact that someone was there, that someone was armed, and as you said, courageous enough to jump in and put a stop to this. Obviously, we don't know what the the intended targets were for Barber, whether he was going after the people that he actually shot, or if he was somehow, I don't know, mentally compromised. We may never know.
Oh, we're going to know.
You think?
Absolutely. The Albemarle County Police Department, and somehow motive needs to be released to the public. I'm going to ask you, the viewer and listener, a very sensitive question. If the man who killed two people based on a personal beef, some kind of domestic issue, or some kind of personal vendetta, in your eyes, is that a better scenario than if the man randomly pursues a grocery store in Crozet just to kill people? And I hate to say this, and I know the viewer and listener feels this way and may be hesitant to say it, and certainly hesitant to say it on a microphone in front of a lot of people and cameras. But a man who goes to a grocery store and is shooting to kill with purpose, because of vendetta, because of a domestic issue, because of a past altercation, that is an entirely better scenario for the community than some random psycho going to a shopping center and a grocery store and shooting to kill for sport and for fun, or because they're deranged or crazy or angry.
Agreed.
And digest that, ladies and gentlemen. And if you have an opportunity to digest it, you're going to shake your head and admit that I am absolutely right there. And the second comment, the off-duty law enforcement officer who came out of that grocery store and pulled their personal weapon and shot to kill someone that was looking to kill others, should have their name celebrated in local media by local law enforcement and local community leaders. Because the damage could have been much more significant. A terrifying story. And an otherwise sleepy, safe, Mulberry-esque Crozet. Judah Wickower, before we get to the viewers and listeners.
You're right. It could have been a lot worse. If he had been going for as many targets as possible, as many people as possible, it could have been a lot worse. And you say that the police will have a motive?
I think the police owes it to the community to release why this shooting took place.
So you think they have a motive?
I think the police is absolutely... Judah, you don't think the police is investigating right now what led a man to take a rifle to shoot people outside a grocery store?
I don't doubt it.
They're not just going to chalk this up. Oh, the guy shot and killed some people. He was killed by somebody else. Let's go to the next case. They're investigating what's happening and what the motive for the killing is. That's part of any police investigation. And we as a community, we as parents, we as homeowners, we as tenants, we as taxpayers deserve to know what happened.
I agree.
And we deserve to know because that knowledge offers a sense of clarity, safety, a sense of calm. Because if it was just some psycho going to a parking lot and shooting up people, that's effing terrifying.
I agree.
I knew this comment would come into the feed, and I'm going to acknowledge it because it's an equal opportunity talk show. Taddy Rios says, we would not have needed any weapons if kids and young people were not allowed to buy and run around with military-style weapons in the first place? That's the real conversation to have. Taddy Rios also says, I don't care what the killer motive or lack of motive may be. I care that more kids die from gunshots than any other reason in this country. Taddy Rios says, not saying I'm not thankful for this one individual, but he's professionally trained, and that's why this ended the way it ended. Any other good Samaritan out there, the results would have been a lot different. I respect the comment. I push back significantly on the comment. The first thing, the use of kids and guns. The man that had the rifle was 28 years old. This was a 28-year-old man. It was not a child.
It also wasn't an assault weapon.
Do we know that for certain?
I have heard that it was just a rifle.
Initially, it was reported as assault weapon. I think it has since been clarified as a rifle. I want some very crystal clear clarification from the Albemarle County Police Department on the weapon used. Crystal clear clarification on that, and crystal clear clarification on the motive that led to this murder. Crystal clear clarification. I respect the comment from Ms. Rios. Mr. Rios? Is it Ms. Rios? Mr. Rios? I can't see in the photo. You have a mask on covering your face. See if I can enlarge your profile picture here. Ms. Rios, now that I see through the mask that you are wearing, I respect the comment. But this was not a kid killing other kids. This was a grown-ass man killing another grown-ass man and somebody's grandmother. Mm-hmm. And then I'll also add to this. And then I'll get to Neil Williams' comments, Georgia Gilmer's comments, Deep Throat's comments, William McChesney's comments. I will also add this. I know many with concealed weapons permits, with the concealed carry permits, that go through significant training and practice to use their concealed carry, to use their personal gun. I know many that practice at rifle and gun ranges and are very proficient. And I know many inner circle friends that if we're put in a similar situation as this law enforcement exiting Harris Teeter would have sprung into action as well. Is America fractured as it pertains to guns? Sure. Do we need some gun reform in our country? Absolutely. But in this particular circumstance, someone with a concealed permit kept more murder and mayhem from materializing in Crozet, Virginia. And that person should be championed. Neil Williamson asked this question: when do we deserve to know what the motive is? And my response to Mr. Williamson, who he knows I have tremendous respect for, is as soon as humanly possible. When it's a story like this, we deserve to know as soon as humanly possible. Deep Throat, his photo on screen. Did you notice that the Daily Progress called him, quote, a so-called Good Samaritan? He then adds, so reflexively anti-Second Amendment that they will never admit the upside of defensive gun use. Probably the reason this story got no traction outside the region is because the media is anti-Second Amendment gun use. He also adds, I agree he is a hero, ran to the sound of gunfire, and steeringly referred to as a so-called Good Samaritan by a $12 an hour clickbait desk jockey at the Dopey Slug Fest. It is worth discussing how this Good Samaritan has been portrayed by some media. It's also worth discussing why this story has not garnered regional, if not national, attention. Here's the extremely sad turn of events with this story. If this 28-year-old man named Justin Barber had gone to a grocery store in Crozet and killed a handful of people, not just two, but a handful of people, it would have been national news. You'd have every national outlet in the world with a film crew, reporters covering this for days. The fact that a law enforcement officer utilized their personal weapon and put down the drag of society is an indication that this story does not get a mere mention outside of local media. And it's a bias, a media bias, tied to the right to carry arms. It's an indication, if we truly unpack this story, of how the media is human and they can let their personal bias creep into what is supposed to be unbiased reporting. This is a story that should be celebrated nationally. Why aren't the national crews, the national networks, and the national reporters at Teeter right now in the parking lot covering this story? You want to know why? It's because the right to carry arms proved to be the right decision on Monday, the 17th of February in Crozet, Virginia. William McChesney says, the spokesman said the community was not in further danger yesterday. And he says, depending on how much ammunition he had, it could have been much worse. Absolutely. He also says 2 people is 1 person away from the media's mass shooting threshold. There's some of that as well. Stacey Baker Patty said initially it was reported as an AR-15, Judah. I saw the initial reporting as well. Ray Cadell says, as you're getting photos on screen, I am not a gun owner, and I am troubled by the divide in our country over guns. But the gentleman who ended this is absolutely a hero and should be celebrated that way. 100%. Laura Smither-Hawkins, welcome to the program. Dave Rell in the Outer Banks, welcome to the program. Why is it this show that is going balls to the wall with celebrating the man that ended murder and mayhem? And why does the local newspaper utilize the moniker so-called Good Samaritan when describing this individual who put a killer down? Mm-hmm. You know what that's called? It's called the bias of media. And you interpret it whatever way you want to, folks. I offer this show is my interpretation of the news cycle in this region. It's never intended to be an unbiased interpretation. I'll close with this. I want to know the name of the Good Samaritan so I can call him by his first and last name and follow it with the word hero on this talk show. And forever immortalize his name and the word hero and the legacy that is Crozet, Albemarle County, and Charlottesville. The history of Crozet, Albemarle County, and Charlottesville. I also want clarity from the Albemarle County Police Department, a team that I back consistently. Charlottesville, back consistently. State Police, back consistently. Clarity on the motive here. And I pray to God for the 2 that have died and their families. And I pray to God that the motive was one of vendetta and past issue, and not of random act of terroristic violence. Pray to God. How do you go to the next topic on a talk show when you're dealing with murder and mayhem outside of a grocery store in sleepy, safe, silent Crozet? You have to. It's the talk show. Next headline. What is it, Judah Wickhauer?
We have a contested election, finally.
Unbelievable. On a day where this would be the lead in any other news cycle, it's second fiddle. Comments are coming in faster than I can keep up. Ginny Who's got a comment. I respect her tremendously, so I need to put her photo on screen. She said, I know my college kid and her friends. She says, yes, a hero. She said, yes, a hero. Concealed carry is not a right to take for granted. I completely agree with you, Jerry. It's horribly sad either way, but a random shooter is much more terrifying for the community at large. And she says, Deep Throat is spot on. Also, it's why I'm not sure I want the Good Samaritan's name plastered everywhere, because there are too many locals who will paint him as a villain. Who could paint? Okay, Ginny, who first? Respect your comment. Respect your comments. You are saying that, Judah. You say that locals will paint the Good Samaritan a villain?
I don't know if they'll paint him a villain, but
Jesus.
I think there are some that will that may take it upon themselves to whether it's sending emails or making phone calls.
I can't even understand the concept of villainizing somebody that kept more murder and mayhem from happening. Please make the argument for me. Please make the argument. Who in this community would villainize somebody who has the courage to go to gunfire?
First of all, I think it's his choice whether he wants his name to be released. Second,
I don't think it is his choice.
I think it should be. He may not want,
I don't think it is his choice whether or not he wants his name to be released or not.
It may not be, but I think it should be.
That's a great question for some of the attorneys that are watching the program. Is it his choice whether or not his name can or cannot be released?
It's probably not his choice.
I don't think it's his choice at all. And if I was still a reporter, I was a reporter for years. Newspaper, print, and radio. And if I was given this assignment, that would be part of the questions that I would ask and uncover in my reporting. But the conversation we were having is some folks in this community, just in asinine capacity, trying to villainize this man.
I'm not saying that all necessarily would, but I think, as we've noted, the impulse for you showed an example in the newspaper where they're calling him a so-called Good Samaritan. There are people that, despite the fact that this guy probably is allowed to carry a gun, obviously because he has a concealed carry permit, but as a cop...
We don't know he's a cop. He's law enforcement.
Okay, law enforcement. I apologize.
There's some chatter he's off-duty FBI, but I don't think we have that for 100% certain. Keep going. Villainizing this man? Come on the program, sir. I'll bring the 12-year-old scotch onto the set and pour you as many glasses as you will like. We will get you one of the finest steak and cheeses on the downtown mall from Bagby's, sir. We'll get you some ice cream from Chaps, and we'll have a cap of 18-year-old bourbon as an end-of-the-lunch dessert for you. All here on the show. We will sing your praises and forever immortalize your first and last name in the legacy and the channels of Crozet and Charlesville and Albemarle County. And for the folks that even haven't a thought of villainizing this man, don't recognize a good portion of the community anymore.
There are a lot of people that believe that nobody should have guns, and despite the fact that that's just not realistic. If this was, whether this was an assault rifle, and folks, assault rifles are not they're not bullet spraying machine guns that you see in movies. But even if this was an assault rifle, the fact of the matter is a lot of people buy guns for shooting. And
a lot of people buy guns for shooting.
I mean for
yes, they do.
I mean for hunting. And we're never going to have a consensus in the House and the Senate that the right choice is to take away all guns from all people. It's just never going to happen. And so I agree. This guy was a hero. He came out, he put his life on the line, and he stopped what could potentially have been worse.
John Blair, before we go off this topic to the next one, is we have the wrong lower third on screen. John Blair says, my wife and I completed the concealed carry course at the Rivanna Rifle and Pistol Club. I can tell you that the course requires some serious training. When I grew up using guns, he says, I grew up using guns, but his wife did not. She can now literally blow the head off of anyone from 100 feet away. Props and respect to the Blairs. Mm-hmm. A+ salt of the earth people from firsthand perspective. For the sake of 45 minutes into the show and the fact that I have to cover other topics on the talk show, I will go to the next topic. This topic will continue on the talk show. Tomorrow, the next day, the day after. I want the first and last name of the man who was a hero so I can celebrate and shower him with accolades, with attention, with praise, with steak and cheese sandwiches from Bagby's, with 12-year-old scotch, with ice cream from Chaps, and with 18-year-old bourbon. That's the best way I know how to celebrate somebody, is steak and cheese sandwiches, delicious ice cream from Chaps, and scotch and bourbon. We have a contested election in the Jack Jouett district. This district comprises Ivy and beyond. And we have two candidates that are both Democrats, one who has filed papers and one who is on the cusp of filing papers. First thing that we should highlight is the fact that it's the first contested election that we know of in Albemarle County, the city of Charlottesville, Fluvanna County, Nelson County, Orange County, any of the jurisdictions that have open seats. And if you want a great list of which candidates, which seats are up for grabs, I encourage you to go to the Free Enterprise Forum website. And when you go to the Free Enterprise Forum website, click the story that says Talking Turkey, penned and authored by the talented Sir Neil Williamson. There you will see that half the Board of Supervisors, 3 of 6 seats are up for grabs, 2 of 5 on the City Council are up for grabs, 3 of 5 in Fluvanna County up for grabs, 2 of 5 in Greene County, 4 of 7 in Louisa, and 3 and 5 in Nelson are up for grabs. And this seems to be the first contested election, ladies and gentlemen. Sean Tubbs, excellent coverage on his community engagement Substack. The first candidate, Sally Duncan. Do you have her photo you can put on screen?
I can get it.
Let's grab her photo on screen in a candidate supplied photo. We all also should get David, is it Shreve? Is it Shrev? How do you pronounce his last name?
If I had to guess, I'd say Shrev.
Shrev?
But I don't know.
Shreve, Shrev? David, I need to know how to pronounce your name. Please reach out to me. These candidates are both Democrats. Sally Duncan has filed paperwork. David Shreve has not. Interestingly, Sally Duncan is she highlights this in her announcement. I am a renter. I would like to help create policies that increase housing options and availability for everyone. Sean Tubbs reports this. She also says, I have 5 children. She has 5 children. Hall of Famer for having 5 children. Good night. 3 of those kids are students at Albemarle High School. She's a teacher, high school history teacher. She has a degree from UVA and a graduate degree from UVA. The undergraduate degree is American Studies, and the graduate degree is Religious Studies. 5 kids and a high school teacher, and she's going to go do 25, 30, 40 hours of work a week, or try to do with the Board of Supervisors for $16,000 a year. Do you understand? I'm sure Miss Duncan realizes this. A high school teacher, history, and she has 5 children. She says she's a tenant, a renter, and she's going to go try to enter a line of work for the next 4 years where half the community is going to hate her guts. The other half of the community is going to care less and be ambivalent, and she's going to work for 25, 30, 35 hours a week, and she's going to do it for $16,000.
Yeah.
Her opponent, David Shreve, he has not filed the paperwork. He at one time was the co-chair of the Jack Jouett Democratic Party, Jack Jouett District Albemarle Democratic Party Committee. He's worked for Weldon Cooper Center. Spent 1 year working for the National Governors Association, and recently started a job as a senior economist for the Center for the Advancement of Steady State Economy. Interestingly, but not surprisingly, Deep Throat is familiar for the Center for the Advancement of Steady State Economy. He says, the Center for the Deep Throat's words, not mine, the Center for the Advancement of Steady State Economy website is all kinds of crazy. And then we know that a Steve Johnson operated remote control Yimby bot is a different kind of crazy. That's him throwing shade on Miss Duncan. He says, at first I was excited that we get a contested race. And then I see it's between a flat earther and alchemy enthusiast. He says this is peak Central Virginia politics. The interesting aspect of Miss Duncan running. This is a question for Neil Williamson. Neil, I need some clarity on this. I don't have this answer. Question for you, Neil. When is the last time on the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors that a candidate has won and served on the dais as a tenant and not a homeowner? Ann Malik's in her 5th term in the Whitehall District. Diantha McKeel is finishing her 3rd term. Ned Galloway is about to enter his 3rd term. He's running in the 3rd term unopposed. He hasn't announced yet, but we know he's going to run. Jim Andrews, homeowner. Mike Pruitt, homeowner. When is the last time on the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors we have had someone serve on the dais that was not a homeowner? Genuine question from Mr. Neil Williamson. If you could provide that answer, I do not have that answer. I do not know that. I would like to know that. The second, he's given an answer. God, I love you, Neil Williamson. Free Enterprise Forum. Support the Free Enterprise Forum. He says, never in my 22 years has the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors had a renter on the Board of Supervisors. This is a historic effort by Ms. Duncan. I can guarantee you, ladies and gentlemen watching this program, that the Gillikin gang and Livable CVille has had backroom influence on this candidate running, and I can guarantee you, mark my words, hand on the Bible, that Livable CVille and the Gillikin gang will put their effort and influence behind Miss Duncan winning this spot, this seat, representing the Jack Jouett District. Then, because we're intelligent people and we like to see where the market's going, right? The next item you have to think about is this. Mike Pruitt is an attorney. He's a housing advocate attorney. He's pro-housing, Mike Pruitt. So much so that he wants to take parts of the Rivanna District where Glenmore is, the Rivanna Village, the small area plan, that's the Rivanna Village, and he's called it one of the greatest failures in development and planning history. Mike Pruitt's words. And he says, I want to take this failure that is the Rivanna Village, and I want to take it out of the designated growth area, and I want to replace it with something else. That's how much of a housing advocate he is. He's trying to do-si-do the 5% development area by saying Glenmore is so effing influential with their strategy and their organization and their clout and their wealth and their money. And because Glenmore is so effing influential, they basically made Rivanna Village a nothing burger when it comes to development. I lived in Glenmore for 4 years. I was privy to the organization that this neighborhood of 900 and some rooftops, they are strategic as all get out. I was incredibly impressed by their efforts to keeping development from happening. In particular, the southern development, Frank and Charlie's project right outside of Glenmore. They tanked the density with that project. And they utilize ambulances and fire trucks and police cars and 2-lane roads and water and infrastructure to tank the southern project right outside of Glenmore. A project of more massive magnitude could not be tanked by the Forest Lakes neighborhood, despite Forest Lakes having 4 to 5x more rooftops, 4 to 5x more housing than Glenmore, Forest Lakes had. Forest Lakes and Hollymead tried to keep a development from happening. Some of that effort was done on this talk show. Forest Lakes and Hollymead failed at keeping that development from happening. And they had 4 to 5x the amount of people impacted by the development than what Glenmore had. And Glenmore was able to get it done. And Pruitt says Rivanna Village is that area by Glenmore, Rivanna Village, is so poo-pooed from a development standpoint, we should take that area out of the 5% development area and replace it with somebody else, some other area, so we can get more housing. That's how housing advocate Pruitt is. So here, we're reading the tea leaves. If Duncan is able to win, if Livable CVille is able to take their poster child, it's like when I was a kid and I had a poster in my bedroom of Kelly Kapowski in a bathing suit with the volleyball under her arm. That's basically what Livable CVille has with Miss Duncan. That's how much a poster child she is for the Livable CVille efforts. The Gillikin gang has got Sally Duncan's poster hanging up in their headquarters. This is the candidate we want to get in Albemarle County's Board of Supervisor. And then they're going to try to team her with Mike Pruitt. And if they can get maybe someone to oppose Ned Galloway or influence Ned Galloway, or someone to go in the Samuel Miller district where Jim Andrews, and they're going to try to revitalize, radicalize, change density and housing in Albemarle County. You already see it on the Gillikin gang social media channels as they make their efforts to raise taxes on rooftops in Albemarle County. They're trotting out Mark Lorenzoni, friend of the program, who's offering commentary before the Board of Supervisors. Mark Lorenzoni telling the Board of Supervisors, you need to raise our real estate taxes so we can do more for housing. Gillikin gang and Livable CVille is doing this. This organization was the organization that drove the new zoning ordinance in the city of Charlottesville. A new zoning ordinance that has birthed absolutely nothing when it comes to housing. The NZO has birthed nothing. It's been a nothing burger for affordability with housing in the city. Williamson says it's on CPR and life support on the Free Enterprise Forum. I will take it a step further. The new zoning ordinance as it's known today is 6 feet underground. That's how bad it is. And it was the effort and influence of this organization, Livable CVille, who's now trying to infiltrate Albemarle County with similar plans and efforts. Read the tea leaves, ladies and gentlemen. Bill McChesney says the city of Charlottesville has a socialist city councilor living in his parents' basement. That's correct. He is a tenant. But Albemarle County never has had a tenant in Williamson's 22 years covering the Albemarle County Board of Supervisor. He shares a link on the comment section of my personal Facebook page on why the new zoning ordinance needs life support. Click that link and you can learn more on what I'm talking about. The folks that effed zoning in Charlottesville are trying to infiltrate and influence Albemarle County now.
It's hardly a surprise.
And you, Albemarle County, need to ask yourself this question. Would you rather have infrastructure before housing? Would you rather have kids learning in actual classrooms, or do you want them to learn in trailers? Would you rather have bus drivers and bus routes that get kids to school on time and home on time, or would you want them to spend hours in school buses before and after school? Would you like to have fire and rescue and water that you can count on, and not traffic that you're sitting in for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or hours or more? Because from my standpoint, quality of life is not sitting in traffic, and quality of life is our kids not learning in trailers, and quality of life is having fire and rescue and police that can get to our problems on time, and having water that we can count on. Quality of life is not Northern Virginia or Fredericksburg from a housing density standpoint. Quality of life is prioritizing infrastructure before rooftops, even if that means we have to pay a little bit more from business tax and real estate tax. Try getting from Keswick to downtown Charlottesville in the morning or the evening. You're going to spend 35 or 40 minutes in your car. We're turning into Northern Virginia and Fredericksburg. And if some people, they would want more of that. The other topics we'll cover on tomorrow's edition of the I Love CVille Show, if we can make it to the studio on time, because God knows we don't have the infrastructure in place to plow the roads because we're prioritizing houses over snow plows.